Okay, so now let's focus on actually building out the geometry for the drawer itself. So we need to, actually give it some dimension and depth and a little, handle or knob right on the drawer itself. So I'm going to dive in here and let's put down a subnetwork just to keep things organized here. And I'm going to call this build drawer, like so. Cool. So let's dive inside now. And in here, we're going to have to loop through all of those particular primitives. So we need a for each primitive, like so. Let's put in our null node. We'll call this prims in. There we go. Awesome. And let's build a drawer. Okay, so we're going to take this particular prim right here. And we are going to basically just start this out by using a poly extrude. And I'm just going to extrude it back just for the depth of the drawer itself. Now you can go ahead and make another parameter over here. I'm going to hold off on doing that for right now, just to get this thing built. Alright, so there we go. So then I'm going to reverse this. And I'm going to call this node the drawer bounds, like so. And one thing we're going to have to do, so basically, this is going to be the front piece, yeah, and this is the back piece. So yeah, we're all good here. Alright, so I'm going to drop down a delete node. And the reason why I want to do this is because I don't want to actually just poly extrude this. It'll really make it hard to UV map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off the bottom piece, and then we're going to do our convert to NURBS trick where we build up the sides with this. So we're going to build it, just like a real drawer would be built. Alright, so in order to get this bottom piece, I'm going to use a delete node for this one, and we're going to delete by normal. And that normal is going to be -1 because I want to get the bottom prim there. Then we set the spread angle to 0 and set this guy to delete none selected so we get just that bottom prim. Perfect. Alright, so now we can do our carving trick to get the side walls for this guy all built out. And I'm going to do a reverse for this, just so I get this primitive, facing upwards. And that's procedural because it's always going to be like that, just based off the way we're building this out. Okay, so with that done, what I'm going to do, this is our bottom piece, and so I'm going to need to give this a little bit of thickness too. So this is the bottom of the drawer. So I'm going to do a poly extrude like so, and just move this up just a little bit. So this will be the controller for the thickness of the wood for the entire drawer. So I'm going to output the back just so we have it. And then I'm going to get this delete node, because now I just want the top prim because I want the sidewalls to sit right on top of this. So let's go and delete everything but the top prim, so we'll just switch this over to a 1, so the top primitive here. Then we're going to do our convert trick, so we're going to convert this over to a NURBS surface. So let's do that. Very cool. We'll interpolate through holes so we maintain the quad. And then for this one, let's do the sides, or actually let's do the back first. Yeah. So that'll work just fine. So this is the back piece, so I'm going to keep both of the primitives there that get generated. And again, I want to actually make sure all these guys are the same thickness, so I'm just going to copy this value and paste that in for here. Oh, and we also need to then divide this by the size in Z, so 0 and D Z size, so we get a percentage. Remember, the carve node works off percentages, not actual meters or anything like that. Cool, so now we have two primitives, right? So 0 and 1. So now I can split on that. Let's do that. So split on 1. And now we can do a carve node to build up the sides, or at least build the shape for the sides. And so for this one, we want to use the first V and second V. And again, we're going to want to basically get that same thickness. So let's copy the expression here from that first carve node, and let's paste it into for the first V, but this time let's base it off the X size. Very cool. And then we'll just keep the outside. So let's copy this parameter here, paste it in for the second V, and we'll do a 1 minus. That way we have an equal offset on both sides. Sweet. And then we just need a merge node. And we've got all the pieces for our sidewalls. All right, so then let's do a convert. Make sure to convert it back to polygon. And make sure to maintain those quads. So yeah, we want polygon. We just want to interpolate through the holes there. So we just maintain the original geometry. And then we just need to poly extrude those guys. So we're going to have to do a little bit of tricks here because, and I'll show you here in just a second. So if I were to, I want these sidewalls to be the same height as this drawer. But remember, we also poly extruded the bottom piece. So there's a certain amount of height that we need to take away from this total height. But let's start with the total height and see what the issue is. All right, so down in our poly extrude here for our sidewalls, let's do, there we go. So let's do a BB box. And we want to get the information from that drawer bounds node, which is that poly extrude node. So we'll say dy size. All right, so if I were to go and template now the drawer bounds, you can see that our walls are a little bit higher. They are the same size in Y, it's just that we need to account for the height of our bottom plank in there. So the bottom plank is down here, so we'll call this bottom plank, just to make it easier to reference. And all we need to do is subtract that height, so we'll say minus the BB box of the bottom plank, and we'll do the dy size. So we just want to subtract that amount. And look at that, we get the exact amount we need. Perfect. All procedural and fancy and stuff. All right, so let's just merge these guys all together. Like so. Well, we've got a drawer. At least the start of a drawer. All right, so let's make sure we UV all those guys. So I'm going to jump up and out. I'm going to grab one of my subnets that has the UV mapping technique that I want to use for these, and let's check it out. So if I hit 5, yeah, looks like we're doing pretty good there. It's not exactly the one I would want, but you know, at least it's UV'd and it's not all over the place. So there we go. Cool. All right, so the next thing that we need to do, this one's relatively easy, is just the front plate. So let's do another poly extrude here, and we'll just pop it out by that same amount. So this guy right here, obviously you can customize it. I'm really just trying to get through the rest of this stuff. You can customize this stuff for days. So let's, you know, we might do the UVing at the very end here because I don't want to have multiples of these. So yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So let's just merge it also into this final one here. Now, one thing you can do, and really this is totally nitpicky, but you can actually move these guys around so that way you get all the curves or all the network lines coming in nice and neat. So yeah, that works out better. So now I'm basically UVing everything there in one pass, which is much better. And the other thing I noticed, I actually need a little bit of offset. If we actually look at our reference here, these drawers actually kind of overlap a little bit, just a little bit, right? So let's take care of that, and that's an easy one. So let's go up here. Before we do this poly extrude, let's drop down another poly extrude here. And this will be my inset, so I'll basically just do a negative inset. This will be that overlap value. And then we don't need to output the side. There we go. So now if I look at the final result here, you can see we've got a nice little bit of overlap there. Yeah. Okay, and then let's take care of the, I'm going to just do little knobs for these guys. And this one, you're more than welcome to make any type of handle or allow a lot of different types of handles to be placed onto these particular drawers. And so to do that, first we need a point to instance onto, right? And I want to instance it right onto the front here. So I can do that by putting out the front group here. And then just dropping down a blast node. and blasting away everything but that front piece. There we go. And that's weird that we're getting that other guy there. We want the back. Looks like it's in the front group, so we just need to make sure we blast or blow away all of our groups. So we need to do group delete. And you could just put in an asterisk for this. Get rid of everything. Yeah, so now I'm left with just the front. Cool. That just cleans it up, so that way we get only the groups that we wanted out of the poly extrude node. All right, and then I need to do a wrangle node. So again, we're creating the point that we're going to instance onto. All right, so let's loop over primitives, and I'm going to say add point, and we're going to add it to geometry 0. We're going to put it at P. So at P in the primitive context is the exact center of the primitive itself. So you can see now we have a new point in there. And then all we need to do is just say remove prim 0 at prim num, and then 1 to remove associated points with it. Now the other thing that we're going to need is a normal, right? So to do that, I need to store the point number that this add point function actually creates. It's always a good idea to call this like something like new point. And all we need to do really is just do a set point attribute. So set point attrib. We'll say 0, and we want to set n. That's the normal attribute. And we want to set it on new point, and we want to set it to 0, 0, 1, and then set. Boom. Now we got a normal. All right, cool. So now we actually need to build the knob there. All right, so I'm just going to do this with a line. I'm going to point it in the Z direction, like so. And I'm going to keep it normalized, so from 0 to 1, right? Because we can always scale it down later. It's best to work in these normalized, or this unit cube, unit box scale when you're developing this. So let's resample this. Give us some more points to work with. So let's do like 0.01. So it's going to be a lot of points, and I want a lot of points because I'm going to basically sculpt this with a ramp. All right, so we'll call this knob shape, like so. And in the resample node, let's make sure we pump out the curve U attribute. That way we have something to map to easily. So I'm going to say at p.y is equal to chramp, so a ramp channel. And I'm going to call this the shape. And you can be more specific too. You can say something like knob shape. And we want to use the f at curve U. All right, so let's make that. Perfect. So now I have a ramp I can use to shape this guy. We could expand this by hitting this little button right here. Allows you to expand. It gives you just a little bit more range to control. All right, so let's pull this down. Let's actually pull these, actually this one up just a little bit. That's where this is going to be inserted into the wood. And then I want this one at 0 because that's always see the front of the knob there. So I want to create this knob shape here. Something like this. Yeah. You're going to give it a little bit more space to breathe there. So that's why we have, a lot of those points in there. And then let's go and select all these by holding down Control and then clicking on all the little handles here. And we're going to change it to a B-spline. What does Catmull ROM look like? No. Let's try bait. Nope. Definitely don't want to do that one. Yeah, B-spline was the best. If you want, a little bit more of like a crease in there, you could just add one more and then just raise the value up and get it really close. Do something like that. Do the same thing on this side. Yeah, let's shape it a little bit better. Cool. So at this point, if we were to actually revolve this or create some geometry out of it, it would be way too many polygons for this particular prop in game. So let's do a refine node. And let's refine this guy. So first and second U need to be all the way from 0 to 1, so we do the full curve. And then we want to go to unrefine and just play around with this value until we get something reasonable. Yeah, I think that's going to work out pretty good. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. We could always try to resample too. Let's see what happens with a resample. Yeah. It's okay. Let's try maximum segments. Still kind of end up with the same problem. Too many points. Let's just stick with the refine. Look better. Alright, so at this point, let's do a revolve. And we're going to revolve around the z-axis for this guy. So we can put a 1 in for z, 0 in for the y direction there, and we have a little knob here. So this is definitely way too skinny. Though, you know, if you like it, then you can leave it. I'm going to fatten that up a little bit. So let's just select all these guys here together and just move it up. Yeah, that looks good. One thing I should demo here is that, you know, with the revolve node, that point there where they all meet is not going to actually fuse them together. And I'm not sure, I don't think that they add one in 18.5. Excuse me. You could always put end caps on it. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I don't think that they have that. This does create UVs though, which is nice. And they're all normalized, so you can leave it that way, or you can, you know, turn them off if you want. I think I'm going to keep the V normalized or seamless. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it like that for now. I can always change it later. Cool, so we need to fuse it just to make sure that that point is just a single point now. And then let's reverse it. Yep, there we go. Cool, and then let's, in our revolve, let's add some more divisions here. Make it a little more round. Again, you can tweak all that stuff later on. Cool. So I'm going to bundle this up into a subnet. I'm going to call this knob. Because, you know, when I do make the, you know, final version of this, I'll probably add in a couple of other options that artists can use. So that way, you know, certain drawers have handles and some have knobs, stuff like that. All we need to do now is copy this to the point that we just created. So I just select those both, pump that into the copy to points. And now, if I were to template this guy, where did you go? Oh, there you are. So this guy is really big. So let's merge it in after the UV, because it already has UVs on it. So we'll just merge it in at the end here. There we go. We have really big knobs there. So let's put that on a transform node here. But that's why we work in that unit square size, and then we just scale it down later. It makes it much easier, because if you didn't, your values that you would be using in your ramp would be super tiny and would be really hard to edit. So just keep that in mind, and we'll just scale it down to what we actually need. Yeah, something like that. Looks cool. Also, I'm going to inset it a little bit too. It's sitting right on the surface, which, you know, you might be fine with, but I'm just going to inset it just a little bit. There we go. Alright, so now we've got drawers. Beautiful. Look at that. All good to go. So one thing that I also want to do is I also want to randomize, you know, which ones are open and not, kind of thing. I'll probably just do some randomization tricks for that. You could always come in here and actually add in. So when you're on drawers, you can add in a option to open certain ones or not. You can do tons of stuff at this point. So now I can change, you know, the drawer count. No prob. And let's check the rest of these guys. Just make sure it's still going. Yep. Starting to slow down a little bit. That happens after a certain amount of time. It's just because we're building so many drawers now. Yeah, everything seems to be working great. Nice. Might have to clamp that value. That's basically the thickness of the wood there. It'd be really cool if you're building some sort of IKEA app. Alright, anyways, I'm going to close the video out there and move on to the next. And I think what we're going to do is focus on the doors now. And then after that we'll do the decorative item. And then I think we'll just do some vertex colors for now in this series. And then test it out in Unreal and call it good for this one. And then I'll do the texturing for it in the next one. Alright, thanks so much.